The silk sheets smelled like lavender and lies. I pressed my palm against my mouth, trying to muffle the nervous giggle threatening to escape as I wedged myself further under the massive four-poster bed. Dust tickled my nose. The hardwood floor was cold against my bare knees, and my wedding dress, this ridiculous confection of tulle and lace that had cost more than I made in 6 months waiting tables, bunched awkwardly around my thighs. This was supposed to be funny, a harmless prank to break the ice with Marcus, my new husband. We'd only known each other 4 months after all. Met at the diner where I worked the graveyard shift, him always ordering black coffee and leaving generous tips that kept my electricity on. He was kind, safe, boring maybe, but after 26 years of struggle, boring sounded like paradise. The hotel room was one of those obscenely expensive suites I'd only seen in magazines, all cream-colored furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Marcus had insisted on it, even though I'd protested about the cost. "You deserve something beautiful," he'd said, cupping my face with those soft accountant hands that had never known real work. I heard the door click open and bit down harder on my palm, barely containing my laughter. Footsteps echoed across the marble entryway. Heavy footsteps. Deliberate. Something cold slithered down my spine. Those weren't Marcus's shuffling, apologetic steps. These were the footfalls of someone who owned every room they entered, who calculated angles and exits with each stride. Even muffled by the bed skirt hanging inches from my face, I could hear the difference. Feel it. The scent hit me next, not Marcus's drugstore cologne, but something darker, more expensive. Bergamot and leather and something else I couldn't name. Something that made my pulse quicken for reasons that had nothing to do with my stupid prank. "You can come out now." My heart stopped. The voice was deep, textured like smoke over gravel, with an accent I couldn't quite place. Definitely not Marcus. I stayed frozen, hardly breathing, my wedding dress rustling traitorously against the floor. Maybe he was talking to someone else. Maybe. "I can see your reflection in the window glass, under the bed." A pause. Clever hiding spot. Not clever enough. Oh God. Oh God, oh God, oh God. My mind raced through possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. Hotel staff? A thief? But no thief would sound so calm, so utterly in control, and no hotel employee would walk into an occupied honeymoon suite like they owned it. "I'm going to count to 3. If you're not out by then, I'll assume you're a threat that needs to be neutralized. 1. The casualness of that word, neutralized, sent ice through my veins. This wasn't a joke anymore. This wasn't anything close to funny. 2. My body moved before my brain caught up. Survival instinct overriding embarrassment. I scrambled out from under the bed, my dress catching on something and tearing with a sound that seemed obscenely loud in the sudden silence. I emerged on my hands and knees, hair falling in my face, probably looking like some kind of deranged bride from a horror movie. I looked up. The man standing by the window turned, and the city lights behind him created a halo effect that made it hard to see his features clearly, but I could make out enough. Tall, well over 6 feet. Broad shoulders filling out a black suit that probably cost more than my yearly rent. Dark hair styled with casual precision. And even from across the room, even in the dim light, I could feel the weight of his gaze. He studied me with the kind of attention that made my skin prickle. Not leering, not overtly threatening, but thorough, cataloging. Like he was memorizing every detail. The tear in my dress, the dust on my knees, the way my hands trembled slightly as I tried to smooth down my hair. "Wrong room," I managed, my voice coming out smaller than I wanted. I'm on my honeymoon. My husband will be back any second." Something flickered across his face. Not quite amusement, but close. He reached into his jacket, and every muscle in my body tensed, ready to run even though I knew I'd never make it to the door. He pulled out a phone. Expensive. Sleek. One of several, I noticed, lined up in his inner pocket like weapons. "Your husband," he said, his voice almost gentle in a way that was somehow worse than if he'd yelled. "Marcus Pemberton, 5'9", brown hair, works at Davidson & Associates as a junior accountant." My mouth went dry. "How do you..." He also stole $300,000 from my organization over the past 8 months. Small amounts, carefully hidden in budget discrepancies and ghost accounts. Very clever. Almost clever enough. The room tilted. I grabbed the bedpost to steady myself. The wood smooth and solid under my palm. The only real thing in a world that had suddenly stopped making sense. That's not... Marcus did. He pocketed the phone, never breaking eye contact. The wedding was smart. I'll give him that. Joint accounts, shared assets, makes it much harder to freeze his funds when they're entangled with an innocent party. His head tilted slightly. You are innocent, I assume? I don't know what you're talking about. My voice cracked. I don't know anything about... We just got married today, this morning. I believe you. 2 words that should have been reassuring but somehow weren't, because the way he said them suggested he'd already run a complete background check. Already knew everything about my life, from my maxed out credit cards to my student loans, to the fact that I still sent money to my sick mother every month, even when it meant eating ramen for a week. Where is he? I asked, though part of me didn't want to know the answer. The man moved then, walking toward me with that same deliberate grace. He wasn't rushing, wasn't threatening, but I still backed up until my shoulders hit the wall next to the bed. He stopped a few feet away, close enough that I could see his face properly now. Young, I realized with a start, maybe early 30s, handsome in a way that seemed almost unfair. Sharp jawline, dark eyes that missed nothing, a mouth that looked like it rarely smiled but would be devastating when it did. A small scar cut through his left eyebrow, the only imperfection in otherwise aristocratic features. Your husband, he said, is currently in the presidential suite upstairs, probably wondering why you haven't come looking for him yet. He switched the room keys, gave you this room number instead of the real one. My stomach dropped. Why would he? Because I'm supposed to be in the presidential suite tonight. And he, clever boy, arranged to have you come here instead. To my room. His expression didn't change, but something dark flickered in his eyes. Tell me. Did he seem nervous when he left, eager to take care of something? Maybe he said he needed to make a quick call, speak with the concierge. He had. Marcus had kissed my cheek, told me to get comfortable, said he needed to confirm something with the front desk about breakfast service. He'd been smiling, excited almost. He set you up, the man continued, his voice almost gentle. Probably thought I'd find you here and assume you were part of the theft. An accomplice, or leverage. The word leverage hung in the air like a blade. But he miscalculated, the man said. Because I did my homework. Elena Marie Santos, 26 years old, daughter of Maria Santos, currently residing in a care facility for her MS. You work 60-hour weeks at Tony's Diner and a cleaning service. Send most of your paycheck home. Live in a studio apartment in the worst part of town. You've never had a parking ticket, never been arrested, never even been late on a payment when you could help it. He paused. You're not the type to steal. You're the type to be stolen from. Heat burned behind my eyes, but I refused to cry. Not in front of this stranger who somehow knew everything, who stood in what was supposed to be my wedding night room, like an avenging angel dressed in Italian wool. Who are you? I whispered. Someone your husband made a very serious mistake crossing. He pulled out his phone again, pressing a button. Dante, presidential suite. Bring him down. The response was immediate, crackling through the speaker. Yes, sir. He ended the call, those dark eyes fixing on me again. You should sit down. I don't want to sit down, but my legs were shaking, and the wall was the only thing keeping me upright. Suit yourself. He moved to the window, hands in his pockets, looking every inch the powerful man he clearly was. When they bring him here, you're going to have a choice to make. What kind of choice? He turned, backlit by the city again, and I could swear the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Whether you're still married to a thief, he said, or a widow. The word hit me like a fist. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. He used you, he continued, his voice matter of fact. Set you up to take a fall, or at the very least, to distract me. That's not love. That's strategy. And bad strategy at that. You can't just... I found my voice, though it shook. You can't kill someone over money. It's not about the money. For the first time, Something hot flashed in his eyes, real emotion breaking through that controlled surface. It's about respect, trust, the understanding that when you take from certain people there are consequences. Your husband knew who he was stealing from. He did it anyway. Worse, he tried to use an innocent woman as a shield. The door opened. 2 men entered, both massive, both wearing suits that barely contained their bulk, both moving with military precision. Between them, Marcus stumbled, his face white with terror. His eyes met mine, and I saw it. The guilt, the fear, the calculation even now, trying to figure out if I could still be useful. "Elena," he started, his voice high and thin. "I can explain." "Explain to me," the stranger cut in, his voice like a knife through silk. "Why you gave your bride the key to my room on your wedding night." Marcus's mouth opened and closed. Sweat beaded on his forehead. "I didn't. It was a mistake." "No mistake. You switched the room assignments, had her come here while you waited upstairs, probably ready to run the moment you heard screaming." The stranger took a step toward Marcus, and even the 2 large men holding him seemed to tense. "Did you think I'd hurt her? Use her to get to you? Or were you just hoping I'd be distracted long enough for you to disappear?" "Please," Marcus whimpered. "I'll give it back. All of it. I just needed. The stranger's laugh was soft, terrifying. "Let me tell you what you need. You need to pray that I'm feeling merciful tonight." He looked at me then, and I felt pinned by that gaze, like a butterfly on a collector's board. "The choice is yours," he said. "He's your husband. Legally. At least for the next few hours." I looked at Marcus, this man I'd married this morning, thinking I'd finally found safety, finally found someone who wanted me for me. This man who'd smiled and promised to love me forever, who'd held my hands at the altar with fingers that turned out to be already reaching into someone else's pocket. This man who'd hidden me under a bed like bait in a trap. "He's not my husband," I heard myself say. "We're getting it annulled." Something that might have been approval flickered across the stranger's face. "Smart girl." He nodded to the 2 men, and they started dragging Marcus toward the door. Marcus fought, screaming my name, screaming promises and apologies and threats all jumbled together. The door closed behind them, muffling his voice until there was nothing but silence and the ghost of lavender-scented lies. I stood there, still in my torn wedding dress, covered in dust, watching my life implode in real time. The stranger moved closer, not threatening, but not exactly comforting either. He reached out slowly, giving me time to flinch away if I wanted, and brushed a strand of hair from my face. His fingers were warm, calloused in unexpected places. "You have nowhere to go tonight," he said. It wasn't a question. I didn't answer. Couldn't. "This room is paid for. Stay here. Tomorrow we'll figure out the rest." "The rest of what?" My voice sounded hollow. He smiled then, and it was as devastating as I'd imagined. But also sad, somehow. Knowing. "The rest of your life, Elena, the one that doesn't involve men who hide you under beds." He walked to the door, paused with his hand on the frame. "My name is Alexei," he said, "and I'm very sorry your wedding night ended this way." Then he was gone, and I was alone in a room that smelled like expensive cologne and shattered dreams, wearing a torn dress that cost more than I made in 6 months, wondering how the hell hiding under a bed for a stupid prank had ended with me owing my life to a man whose last name I didn't even know. A man who, I was starting to suspect, was far more dangerous than Marcus had ever been. A man who looked at me like I was something precious and breakable. A man who'd just given me a choice and seemed genuinely willing to let me make it. I sank onto the edge of the bed, my legs finally giving out, and stared at the city lights blinking through the window, like stars that had fallen and forgotten how to rise. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marcus's face, that mask of terror and guilt, and heard the stranger's voice, Alexei's voice, smooth and dark like expensive whiskey, asking me to choose between widow and annulment as casually as someone might ask about coffee preferences. I'd peeled off the wedding dress somewhere around 3 a.m, letting it puddle on the bathroom floor like a defeated ghost. The hotel robe was soft against my skin, Egyptian cotton that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. I'd wrapped myself in it and curled up in the armchair by the window, watching the city lights blur and refocus as exhaustion pulled at my edges. But sleep never came. When dawn finally crept across the skyline, painting everything in shades of pink and gold that seemed obscenely cheerful, I heard the door click open. My heart slammed against my ribs. I shot up from the chair, the robe falling open slightly before I clutched it closed. But it wasn't Alexei who entered. A woman stepped inside, tall, elegant, probably in her 50s, wearing a crisp black pantsuit and carrying several shopping bags with names I recognized from magazine advertisements. Her silver hair was pulled back in a perfect chignon, and her eyes, sharp and assessing, swept over me with the kind of efficiency that missed nothing. "Miss Santos," she said, her accent British and refined. "My name is Catherine. Mr. Volkov sent me to assist you this morning." Volkov. So that was his last name. Russian, I realized. That explained the accent I couldn't place. He'd smoothed most of it away, but it lingered in certain words like a fingerprint. "Assist me with what?" I asked, my voice rough from hours of not speaking. "Getting you settled." Catherine set the bags on the bed with practiced care. "You'll need clothes, toiletries, and proper documentation for the annulment proceedings. Mr. Volkov has arranged everything." I stared at the bags, then at her. "He doesn't even know me. He knows enough." Catherine pulled out a garment bag, unzipping it to reveal a simple but clearly expensive dress. Deep navy, conservative cut, the kind of thing you'd wear to a lawyer's office. "He knows your husband, former husband, left you with nothing but a torn wedding gown and a hotel room you can't afford past checkout time. He knows you have no family in the city, no friends who could take you in on short notice. He knows that I'm pathetic," I finished, bitterness coating my tongue. Catherine's expression softened slightly. "That you're alone. There's a difference." She laid the dress across the bed, smoothing out invisible wrinkles. "Mr. Volkov doesn't tolerate people who prey on the vulnerable. Your husband made you vulnerable. Mr. Volkov is simply correcting the imbalance. Out of the goodness of his heart?" I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. "Out of principle." Catherine pulled out shoes next. Low heels, black, practical. "The annulment lawyer will be here at 9. You have an hour to shower and dress. There's breakfast being sent up in 20 minutes. She moved toward the door, then paused, turning back to look at me with something that might have been sympathy. "A word of advice, Miss Santos. Mr. Volkov is many things, dangerous, powerful, unforgiving to his enemies. But he's also fair. If he says he'll help you, he will. Don't mistake his assistance for weakness, and don't run from it out of pride. You'll need it more than you know." Then she was gone, leaving me alone with bags full of clothes I hadn't asked for, and questions I couldn't answer. The lawyer arrived exactly at 9. I'd showered, scrubbing away the previous night until my skin turned pink, and dressed in the navy outfit Catherine had provided. It fit perfectly, which should have been comforting, but instead felt invasive. How did Alexei know my size? How much else did he know? The lawyer was a small, nervous man named Peterson, who kept adjusting his glasses and wouldn't quite meet my eyes. He spread papers across the coffee table, explaining in rapid, clinical terms how the annulment would work. Given the fraudulent nature of the marriage, Mr. Pemberton's deliberate deception and intent to use the union for illegal purposes, this should be straightforward. We're arguing fraud and duress. You'll need to sign here, here, and here. I picked up the pen, my hand hovering over the first signature line. This morning, I'd been married. A wife, Mrs. Elena Pemberton. And now, with 3 signatures, I'd erase it all like it had never happened. "Where is he?" I asked quietly. "Marcus." Peterson's Adam's apple bobbed. "That's not something I'm at liberty to discuss." "Is he alive?" "Miss Santos, is he alive?" Peterson looked toward the door, as if hoping someone would rescue him. He sighed, removing his glasses to clean them, a nervous gesture that told me more than his words would. "Mr. Pemberton is currently in a secured location, assisting Mr. Volkov's organization with recovering the stolen funds. Once the money is returned and certain assurances are made, he'll be released." released, not killed. Some of the tension in my shoulders eased, though I wasn't entirely sure why I cared. Marcus had used me, betrayed me, literally fed me to a wolf to save his own skin, but some soft, stupid part of me, the part that had said yes when he'd proposed with a pawnshop ring and nervous smile, was relieved he wasn't dead. I signed the papers. Peterson gathered them with obvious relief, shoving them into his briefcase like they might bite. "You're free now, Miss Santos, legally unburdened. I'll file these within the hour. Free." The word should have felt liberating. Instead, it felt like falling. Catherine returned an hour later, finding me still sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. "The annulment is filed," she said briskly. "Now we need to discuss your living situation. I have an apartment, which Mr. Pemberton knows the location of." Catherine's tone was gentle but firm. "And which, forgive my bluntness, is not safe even on a good day. Mr. Volkov has arranged alternative accommodation. I can't afford. It's handled. I don't want charity. Then consider it compensation." Catherine sat across from me, her posture perfect, her gaze direct. "Your husband stole from Mr. Volkov's organization. That theft impacted you as well. Your security, your trust, your future. This is restitution, not charity." "Restitution for what? I didn't lose anything that belonged to Alexei." "Didn't you?" Catherine tilted her head. "You lost your wedding night, your marriage, your sense of safety, all because Mr. Pemberton thought he could steal from powerful men without consequence. Mr. Volkov takes responsibility for the collateral damage his world creates. That includes you." I wanted to argue, but exhaustion was winning, and beneath the exhaustion, fear. Because Catherine was right, I couldn't go back to my apartment. If Marcus knew where I lived, others might too. And if Alexei had enemies, if Marcus had made other people angry. "What kind of accommodation?" I asked finally. "A secure apartment in a building Mr. Volkov owns. Good neighborhood doorman, security cameras. You'd have your own space, privacy. No one would bother you there." "For how long?" "As long as you need it." I laughed, the sound bitter and wrong in the elegant hotel room. "Nothing is free. What does he want from me?" Catherine's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Understanding, maybe, or pity. "Mr. Volkov wants to ensure you're safe, that's all. Whether you believe that or not is your choice. But I've worked for him for 12 years, Miss Santos. I've seen him do terrible things to terrible people. I've also seen him move heaven and earth to protect those who don't deserve to suffer." She stood, smoothing her already perfect suit. "The car is downstairs whenever you're ready. Your belongings from your old apartment will be collected and moved to the new location this afternoon. You don't need to go back there. You've thought of everything. Mr. Volkov thinks of everything. I simply execute." She left me with a key card and an address in a part of the city where I'd never been able to afford even window shopping. The car was a black SUV with windows so dark I couldn't see inside. The driver, a massive man with a scar running down his neck, opened the door without speaking. I climbed in, half expecting to find Alexei waiting. The back seat was empty. We drove through morning traffic, the city transforming from the glittering downtown hotels to residential neighborhoods with tree-lined streets and buildings that screamed old money. The SUV pulled up in front of a pre-war building with an actual doorman who tipped his hat as I approached. The apartment was on the 8th floor. The driver, still silent, escorted me up, unlocked the door, and stepped back without entering. I walked inside and felt my breath catch. It wasn't huge, maybe 1,000 square feet, but it was beautiful. Hardwood floors gleamed in the morning light streaming through tall windows. The furniture was tasteful and comfortable. A plush gray couch, a dining table that sat 4, a kitchen with actual counter space and appliances that looked newer than anything I'd ever owned. Through an open door, I could see a bedroom with a queen-sized bed already made with crisp white linens. On the kitchen counter sat a vase of fresh flowers, white roses, and a note in elegant handwriting. "Welcome home." A home. As if this could ever be home, as if I belonged in a place like this, with its crown molding and its view of the park, and its silence that wasn't punctuated by sirens or shouting neighbors, or the constant drip of a bathroom faucet I couldn't afford to fix. I walked to the window, pressing my palm against the cool glass. 8 floors below, people move through their lives, jogging, walking dogs, pushing strollers. Normal people with normal problems. I wasn't one of them anymore. I'd crossed some invisible line last night, from my world into Alexi's, and I had no idea how to cross back. A knock on the door made me jump. I opened it to find a young woman holding several boxes. "Delivery for Miss Santos," she said cheerfully. "Your personal items from your previous residence." My entire life, packed into 4 cardboard boxes. It should have been depressing, but instead it felt like proof that I'd existed before last night, that I'd built something, even if it was small and fragile and ultimately temporary. I spent the afternoon unpacking, hanging my threadbare clothes in a closet designed for designer gowns, arranging my battered books on pristine shelves, setting up my ancient laptop on a desk that deserved something better. The contrast was almost funny. Almost. Evening crept in, painting the apartment in shades of amber and shadow. I'd just finished organizing the kitchen, my mismatched mugs looking ridiculous in the custom cabinets, when another knock came. This time, when I opened the door, Alexei stood there. He'd changed from last night's formal suit to dark jeans and a black Henley that somehow made him look more dangerous, not less. His hair was slightly disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it. Those dark eyes met mine, and I felt that same jolt of recognition, of something primal and terrifying. "May I come in?" he asked. I should have said no, should have thanked him politely and closed the door, maintained some kind of boundary between his world and whatever was left of mine. Instead, I stepped back and let him enter. He moved through the apartment with the same deliberate grace I remembered, taking in the details, my boxes, my books, the way I'd tried to make this space mine even though it would never truly be. "You settled in," he observed. "You didn't leave me much choice." "You always have a choice, Elena." He turned to face me, and the way he said my name, soft, careful, like it was something precious, made my stomach flip. "You could have refused the apartment, gone back to your place, told me to leave you alone, and would you have? Left me alone?" A small smile tugged at his mouth. "Probably not, but I would have respected your wishes more creatively." Despite everything, I felt my lips twitch. That's not reassuring. It's not meant to be. He moved to the window, looking out at the darkening park. "I came to check on you, make sure you had everything you needed." "Why?" "Because your husband, ex-husband," I corrected sharply. "Ex-husband," he amended, "put you in danger. That makes you my responsibility. I'm not your responsibility. I'm not anyone's responsibility but my own." He turned from the window, and the look in his eyes was so intense I had to fight the urge to step back. "You became my responsibility the moment Marcus Pemberton gave you a key to my room," he said quietly. "The moment he tried to use you as a distraction, or leverage, or whatever his pathetic plan was, he involved you in my world, Elena. That has consequences. I don't want to be in your world." "I know." And he sounded genuinely regretful. "But you are. And until I'm certain you're safe, until I'm certain Marcus's theft hasn't made you a target for people who are far less understanding than I am, you stay under my protection. What if I leave? Just pack up and go to another city?" "I'd follow you." The certainty in his voice should have been terrifying. It was terrifying, but it was also something else, something I didn't want to examine too closely. "You can't just decide to protect me," I said, hearing the frustration in my own voice. "You can't just insert yourself into my life because you feel guilty, or responsible, or whatever this is. Watch me." We stood there, the air between us crackling with tension and unspoken things. The rational part of my brain screamed at me to run, to get as far from this beautiful, dangerous man as possible. But another part, a part I didn't recognize, didn't trust, wanted to step closer, to test the boundaries of whatever this was. Alexei's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. "I have to go," he said. "Business." The kind that ends with people in secured locations? I couldn't help the bite in my words, sometimes. He moved toward the door, then paused. "There's a phone in the top drawer of the nightstand. My number is programmed in. If you need anything, Anything at all. You call me, day or night. I won't. You will. His gaze pinned me. Because despite what you think, Elena, you're smart, and smart women know when to ask for help, even from dangerous men. He left before I could respond, the door clicking shut with a finality that felt too much like punctuation on a sentence I hadn't agreed to write. I walked to the bedroom, pulled open the nightstand drawer. Sure enough, a sleek smartphone sat there, top of the line, with only one contact saved, Alexei. I stared at the name for a long moment, then closed the drawer and climbed into bed, still wearing the navy dress Catherine had provided. Outside, the city hummed and glittered and lived its life. And somewhere in it, Alexei Volkov was conducting business I didn't want to imagine, protecting me from threats I couldn't see, weaving me deeper into a world I'd stumbled into by hiding under a bed, on what should have been the happiest night of my life. I fell asleep with white roses perfuming the air and questions I couldn't answer circling my mind like vultures. 3 days passed in strange, suspended animation. I went to work at the diner, took the subway like always, tied on my apron, poured coffee and forced smiles for customers who never really saw me. But everything felt different now, like I was watching my own life through glass. Tony, my boss, asked if I was okay. I told him I'd had the flu. He believed me because why wouldn't he? Nobody expects their waitress to say, "Actually, my husband tried to feed me to the Mafia on our wedding night." The apartment felt like a museum I was visiting. Too clean, too perfect, too much like someone else's life. I'd wake up in that enormous bed and forget where I was for a split second, my heart racing until the expensive sheets and the view of the park reminded me. This was real. This was my life now. Alexei hadn't contacted me. I told myself I was relieved, that his absence proved this was just charity, just guilt, just a powerful man's way of cleaning up a mess. But I caught myself checking the phone in the nightstand drawer more times than I wanted to admit, seeing that single contact and feeling something twist in my chest. On the 4th day, Catherine appeared at the diner during my lunch shift. She looked wildly out of place among the cracked vinyl booths and fluorescent lighting, her designer pantsuit and perfect posture drawing stares from the regulars. She slid into a corner booth and waited patiently while I finished taking orders, her expression pleasant but unreadable. "What are you doing here?" I asked when I finally approached her table, coffee pot in hand. "Having lunch." She glanced at the laminated menu with interest. "What do you recommend?" "Catherine." "The meatloaf, please, and coffee, black." She folded the menu and handed it to me. "Join me when you can. We need to talk." 20 minutes later, during my break, I slid into the booth across from her. She'd barely touched the meatloaf, but her coffee cup was empty. I refilled it automatically, my hands steady from years of practice. "Mr. Volkov would like to see you," she said without preamble. My stomach dropped. "Why?" "He didn't share his reasons with me." Catherine added cream to her coffee with precise movements, "But he asked me to invite you to dinner tonight. 7 o'clock. A restaurant called Luminare. Do you know it?" I almost laughed. Luminare was the kind of place I'd only seen in movies, the kind where reservations required months of waiting and entrees cost more than my weekly paycheck. "I can't afford—" "You're his guest." Catherine pulled out a small card, sliding it across the table. "The address. A car will pick you up at 6:30. What if I say no? Then I'll tell him you declined, and he'll likely show up at your apartment instead." She took a sip of coffee, her gaze steady over the rim. "Mr. Volkov isn't accustomed to being refused, Miss Santos. But he'll respect your choice. He'll just be persistent about it." I picked up the card, the heavy cardstock smooth between my fingers. "Is this a date?" "It's dinner." Catherine's expression softened slightly. "Though I suspect Mr. Volkov's intentions are more complicated than a simple meal. He's been preoccupied since your wedding night. Distracted in a way I haven't seen before." "Distracted how? That's something you should ask him yourself." She stood, leaving cash on the table. Far too much for a barely touched meatloaf. "Wear something comfortable. And Elena? Don't overthink this. Sometimes dinner is just dinner." But the look in her eyes said she didn't believe that any more than I did. At 6:15, I stood in front of my closet in my underwear, staring at my pathetic collection of clothes. Everything I owned was wrong, too cheap, too worn, too obviously from discount stores and clearance racks. The navy dress Catherine had given me for the lawyer meeting was my nicest option, but I'd already worn it. Did that matter? Would Alexei notice? Why did I care if he noticed? I was still debating when my phone buzzed. Not the one in the drawer, but my actual phone. A text from an unknown number. Catherine mentioned you might need assistance. Check your closet. My heart hammering, I opened the closet door wider. There, hanging in a garment bag I definitely hadn't put there, was a dress. I unzipped the bag with shaking hands. The dress was midnight blue, almost black, made from fabric so soft it felt like water sliding through my fingers. Simple cut, elegant lines, nothing too revealing but undeniably sophisticated. Shoes sat in a box below, heels higher than I usually wore but not impossible. And underneath, wrapped in tissue paper, a set of delicate gold jewelry. The price tags were gone, but I knew without checking that this outfit cost more than I made in several months. I should have been angry. Should have texted back something sharp about boundaries and presumption and not wanting to be dressed like a doll. But my fingers were already reaching for the dress, pulling it from the bag, holding it against my body as I turned toward the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked like someone who belonged in Alexei's world. Someone confident and beautiful, and worthy of expensive restaurants and dangerous men in Italian suits. I hated that I liked it. I hated that I wanted to be her, even just for one night. At 6:30 exactly, my buzzer rang. The doorman announced the car was waiting. I took one last look in the mirror. The dress fit perfectly. Of course it did. The shoes made my legs look longer, the jewelry caught the light like captured stars, and grabbed my ancient purse before I could change my mind. The SUV was the same one from before. Same silent driver with the neck scar. But this time, when the back door opened, Alexei sat inside. My breath caught. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, his dark hair styled back, a watch glinting at his wrist that could have paid off my student loans, but it was his expression when he saw me that made my pulse stutter, something raw and unguarded flashing across his face before his usual control slammed back into place. "Elena," he said, and my name in his voice sounded like a prayer. "You look beautiful. You bought me a dress." I climbed in, hyper-aware of how close we were in the confined space. He smelled like bergamot, and something darker, more dangerous. "You can't just buy me clothes. I can do anything I want." But there was a slight smile playing at his mouth. "The question is whether you'll accept it. You're wearing the dress, so I'll take that as tacit approval. I didn't have anything else nice enough for—" I stopped, realizing how that sounded. "For me?" His smile widened fractionally. "I'm not that shallow, Elena. You could show up in your work uniform, and I'd still want to have dinner with you." "Why?" The SUV pulled into traffic. Through the tinted windows, the city slid past like a dream. "Because I can't stop thinking about you," Alexei said simply. "Because you made a choice that night. Chose annulment over widow without hesitation. Chose your own integrity over whatever security Marcus might have represented. Because you didn't cry or beg or try to manipulate me into sympathy. You just stood there in your torn wedding dress covered in dust and made a decision." He turned to look at me fully. "I've met very few people who can do that when their world is falling apart. You held a man's life in your hands and made me choose. That's not exactly fair." "No," he agreed. "But it was honest. I don't lie, Elena, not to people I respect. I told you the truth about Marcus, about the consequences of his actions, and I let you decide how you wanted to proceed. Most people in my position would have just made the decision for you. And you're better than most people? I'm worse than most people in almost every way." His voice was matter-of-fact, no false modesty. "But I don't pretend otherwise. That's the difference." The SUV stopped in front of Luminare. The driver opened my door, and Alexei's hand was there, helping me out. His palm was warm, calloused in places that suggested he did more than sign papers and make phone calls. The restaurant was even more intimidating than I'd imagined. All soaring ceilings and crystal chandeliers, well-dressed people speaking in hushed voices, waiters gliding between tables like silent ghosts. The maitre d' recognized Alexei immediately, his professional expression warming into something approaching genuine pleasure. "Mr. Volkov, your table is ready." We were led to a private corner booth, secluded but with a perfect view of the entire restaurant. I noticed Alexei positioned himself, so his back was to the wall, so he could see all the entrances and exits. Old habits, I supposed, or current necessities. "Wine?" he asked, as we settled into seats that felt like butter-soft clouds. "I don't know anything about wine. Then I'll order for both of us." He spoke briefly to the sommelier in what sounded like French, then turned his attention back to me, those dark eyes focused with an intensity that made me feel like the only person in the room. "Tell me about your mother." The question caught me off guard. "Why?" "Because she's important to you, because you work yourself to exhaustion to pay for her care, because I want to know you, Elena." And that seems like a good place to start. So I told him about my mother's diagnosis 7 years ago, the gradual deterioration, the care facility that cost most of my income, about how she'd raised me alone after my father disappeared when I was 3, worked 2 jobs to keep us fed, taught me that hard work and honesty were the only currencies that mattered. "She sounds formidable," Alexei said when I finished. "She is. I corrected myself quickly. Some days are better than others. "When did you last visit her?" 2 weeks ago." Guilt twisted in my stomach. "I've been meaning to go back, but with the wedding and then everything, I haven't had time. We'll go tomorrow." I blinked. "What? To visit your mother? I'll arrange it." He said it like it was decided, like my agreement was assumed. "You can't just... I don't need you to. I know you don't need me to." His voice was gentle but firm. "But your mother hasn't met your husband, doesn't know about the annulment. You'll need to explain it to her, and that will be difficult. I'm offering to be there, if you want the support." Something in my chest cracked. "Why would you do that? Because you shouldn't have to face that alone." He leaned back as the wine arrived, waiting while the sommelier poured and retreated. "Because Marcus put you in an impossible position, and cleaning up his mess includes making sure you have what you need. Even if what you need is someone to sit quietly in a room while you talk to your mother." I picked up my wine glass just to have something to do with my hands. "You're very good at this." "At what?" "Making kindness sound like obligation. Like you're just fixing a problem instead of actually caring." His expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across his features. Maybe I'm not good at showing I care any other way. The waiter appeared before I could respond, and we ordered. Alexei asking my preferences, adapting his choices to accommodate mine, treating the whole interaction like a negotiation where my comfort was the primary goal. It was strange and intoxicating and terrifying all at once. "Tell me about you," I said when we were alone again. "It's only fair." "What do you want to know?" "Everything." "Nothing." "I don't know." I took a sip of wine. It was delicious, smooth and rich in ways I didn't have words for. "Start with why you do what you do." "You mean, why am I a criminal?" His mouth quirked. "You can say it, Elena. I won't be offended by honesty." "Fine. Why are you a criminal?" He considered this, swirling his wine thoughtfully. "Family business. My father ran the organization before me, his father before him. I was raised for this, trained from childhood to take over, to lead, to make the hard decisions that keep our people safe and our enemies afraid." He paused. "I could tell you I didn't have a choice, that it was my destiny or my duty. But that would be a lie. I chose this. I'm good at it. And despite the moral complications, I believe what I do serves a purpose." "What purpose?" "Order. Structure. Protection for people who have no other options." He met my gaze steadily. "The world isn't as simple as legal versus illegal, Elena. There are people who fall through the cracks, who can't rely on police or government or any official system. I provide for them. In exchange, they're loyal. They follow rules. And yes, I profit from it. But it's not chaos. It's not random violence. It's organized, contained, purposeful. You're justifying it. I'm explaining it. Whether you agree is up to you." Our food arrived. Beautifully plated dishes that looked like art. I picked up my fork, suddenly nervous. I'm not judging you, I said quietly. I don't have that right. You saved me from Marcus, gave me a safe place to live. I just want to understand. Then ask. Anything you want to know. So I did. Over the course of the meal, between bites of the most incredible food I'd ever tasted, I asked him about his life, his childhood in Russia before his family moved to America, his mother, who died when he was 15, his rise through the organization, the first time he'd had to make a truly terrible choice, the weight of power and responsibility. He answered everything honestly, brutally so at times, didn't sugarcoat or romanticize. And somehow, that honesty made him more human, not less. Your turn, he said as dessert arrived, something chocolate and decadent that probably had a French name I couldn't pronounce. What did you want to be before life got in the way? A teacher. The answer came automatically. English literature. I wanted to share stories, help kids fall in love with reading the way I did. Why didn't you? Mom got sick my senior year of college. I dropped out to work, to pay for her care. Told myself I'd go back eventually. I shrugged. Eventually never came. It could still come. I laughed softly. I'm 26 with student debt and no degree. That ship sailed. Ships can return to port. Alexei's hand moved across the table, his fingers brushing mine. The touch was electric, sending sparks up my arm. You could go back. Finish. Teach. On what money? On money that's already been set aside for exactly that purpose. I froze. What? The 300,000 Marcus stole. He's paying it back. Slowly, painfully, but he's paying. I don't need it. Consider it restitution for what he took from you. Alexei's thumb traced circles on my knuckles, the gesture absent and intimate. Finish your degree, Elena. Become who you were supposed to be. Tears burned behind my eyes. I pulled my hand back, needing distance, needing to think. I can't take money from you. That's not... We barely know each other. Then get to know me. His voice was low, intense. Let me take you to see your mother tomorrow. Have dinner with me again. Let me show you that I'm not just some monster who solves problems with violence and money. Aren't you, though? The words came out sharper than I intended. You threatened to kill Marcus. You have people in secured locations. You run an organization that does illegal things. Beautiful words over expensive wine doesn't change that. No, he agreed, it doesn't. I am those things, Elena. Dangerous. Violent when necessary. Unforgiving to people who cross me. He leaned forward, and the candlelight caught in his eyes, making them glow like embers. But I'm also someone who keeps his word, who protects what's mine, who looks at a woman hiding under a bed in a torn wedding dress and sees something worth saving. I didn't need saving. Maybe not. But you deserved better than what Marcus gave you, and I can give you better. A future. Options. Safety. His voice dropped lower. Anything you want, Elena. You just have to let me. The weight of his attention was overwhelming. I felt like prey caught in a predator's gaze, but prey that the predator was trying desperately not to devour. I should go, I whispered. This is too much. Then we'll go. He signaled for the check without looking away from me. But I'm taking you to see your mother tomorrow. 2:00. I'll pick you up. Alexei. 2:00, Elena. It wasn't a request. The drive back to my apartment was silent, tension thrumming between us like a live wire. When we pulled up to my building, Alexei walked me to the door, his hand resting on the small of my back. Protective, possessive. At the elevator, he stopped, turning me to face him. His hand came up to cup my cheek, thumb brushing across my skin with devastating gentleness. Thank you for tonight, he said. For giving me a chance to be more than the monster you met 4 days ago. You're still a monster, I said. But my voice had no strength, I know. He smiled, sad and knowing, but maybe I can be your monster if you let me. He leaned down, and for one breathless moment I thought he was going to kiss me, but his lips brushed my forehead instead, soft and reverent, before he stepped back. 2:00 tomorrow, he reminded me. Sleep well, Elena. Then he was gone, leaving me trembling in the elevator, my forehead burning where his lips had touched. my mind spinning with impossible choices and dangerous wants. I fell into bed still wearing the midnight blue dress, clutching my phone like a lifeline, wondering when exactly I'd stopped being afraid of Alexei Volkov and started being afraid of how much I wanted him to kiss me like he meant it. At 2 o'clock exactly, Alexei's SUV pulled up to my building. I'd spent the morning alternating between pacing and staring at my closet, trying to decide what you wear to introduce a Mafia boss to your dying mother. Eventually, I settled on jeans and a simple sweater. My own clothes, not his gifts. I needed to feel like myself for this. Not like the woman in the midnight blue dress who'd let a dangerous man brush his lips across her forehead and liked it far too much. Alexei was waiting in the back seat again, but today he wore dark jeans and a leather jacket over a gray Henley, more casual, more approachable. Almost normal, if you didn't notice the way his driver kept constant vigilance, or the barely visible outline of what was probably a gun beneath the jacket. "Thank you for coming," I said, as I climbed in, trying to keep my voice steady. I said I would. His eyes traced over my face, reading things I didn't want him to see. "How are you feeling?" Terrified. Honesty seemed easier than pretense with him. I have to tell my mother her daughter was married and unmarried in the span of 4 days, that the man I chose was a thief and a coward, that I was stupid enough to— Elena. His hand covered mine, warm and solid. "You weren't stupid. You were hopeful. There's a difference. Feels the same from where I'm sitting." The drive to the care facility took 30 minutes through traffic that Alexei's driver navigated with practiced efficiency. I watched the city slide past, my stomach knotting tighter with each mile. The building appeared too soon, a pleasant 3-story structure with gardens and a fountain, the kind of place that cost everything I had and still never felt like enough. Inside, the familiar smell hit me, antiseptic and flowers, and something indefinable that all medical facilities shared. The receptionist recognized me immediately, her professional smile warming. "Elena, your mother will be so happy to see you. She's in the sunroom." Her gaze slid to Alexei with obvious curiosity. "This is—" I hesitated, unsure how to introduce him. Friend seemed absurd. Protector sounded insane. "Alexei," he supplied smoothly, extending his hand. "A friend of Elena's." The receptionist shook it, clearly charmed. Of course she was. Alexei had probably been charming people since birth, wielding that devastating smile like a weapon. We walked through familiar hallways, my heart hammering harder with each step. Alexei stayed close, but not hovering, his presence solid and grounding without being overwhelming. He'd shortened his stride to match mine, I noticed. Small details that suggested he was paying attention, adjusting himself to my comfort. My mother sat by the window in her wheelchair, sunlight painting her silver hair gold. She'd lost more weight since my last visit, her frame more fragile, but her eyes were bright and alert today. Good day, then. Thank God for small mercies. "Miha!" Her face lit up when she saw me, arms extending. "You came." I crossed to her quickly, bending to embrace her carefully. She felt like bird bones and tissue paper in my arms. "Of course I came, Mama. I'm sorry it's been so long. You're busy, I know. Working too hard as always." Her gaze shifted past me to Alexei, interest sparking. And who was this handsome man? I straightened, suddenly acutely aware of how this looked. Me, showing up after weeks away with a man who screamed money and danger in equal measure. "Mama, this is Alexei. He's a friend. A friend who makes you blush." My mother's smile was knowing, teasing in the way only mothers could manage. "Come closer, Alexei. Let me see you properly." Alexei moved forward with easy grace, taking my mother's extended hand and bringing it to his lips in a gesture that should have seemed ridiculous, but somehow wasn't. "Mrs. Santos, Elena speaks of you often. It's an honor to finally meet you." My mother actually giggled. "Oh, Elena, this one is dangerous." "You have no idea," I muttered. We settled into chairs. There was a small seating area in the sunroom, comfortable furniture arranged to encourage visiting. Alexei positioned himself so he could see the door. Old habits even here, but his attention seemed genuinely focused on my mother. "So, Alexei," my mother said, her English accented but clear. "How did you meet my daughter?" I tensed, but Alexei handled it smoothly. Through unfortunate circumstances that I'm trying to make right, Elena found herself in a difficult situation, and I was in a position to help. What kind of situation? Mama, I started. But Alexei's hand found mine, squeezing gently. It's all right. He looked at my mother with unexpected softness. Mrs. Santos, Elena was recently married to a man who turned out to be less than he appeared. The marriage has been annulled. I'm helping her through the aftermath. The sunroom went very quiet. My mother's expression shifted through several emotions. Shock, confusion, hurt that I hadn't told her, and finally, understanding. Oh, mija. Her voice was soft. When? 5 days ago. My throat was tight. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I didn't know how. This man who married you, he hurt you? Not physically. I blinked back tears. But yes, he hurt me. My mother's hand gripped mine with surprising strength. Then he is a fool, and you are better without him. Her gaze shifted to Alexei. And you? What are you to my daughter? Alexei met her stare directly. No flinching, no deflection. Someone who wants to see her happy, safe, someone who will make sure no one hurts her again. That sounds like a promise. It is. The weight of that simple statement hung in the air. My mother studied Alexei for a long moment, her eyes, still sharp despite everything the disease had taken, reading him in that way mothers could. You're not like other men Elena has known, she said finally. No, ma'am, I'm not. You're dangerous. Yes, but not to her. Never to her. My mother nodded slowly, seeming satisfied with something I couldn't quite name. Then I trust you to keep that promise, Alexei. My daughter has been alone too long, trying to carry everything herself. She needs someone strong enough to stand beside her. Mama, please. My face was burning. This isn't... We're not... Not yet, my mother said with certainty that made my stomach flip. But you will be. I can see it. Alexei's thumb traced circles on my knuckles, and I realized we were still holding hands. When had that happened? When had his touch become something I didn't question? We spent the next hour talking, my mother telling embarrassing childhood stories while Alexei listened with genuine interest, occasionally asking questions that showed he was actually paying attention. He was good with her, patient and respectful, never condescending despite her halting English and occasional confusion when the disease clouded her thoughts. At one point, a nurse came to take my mother for her afternoon medication. While she was gone, I stood at the window, staring out at the gardens without really seeing them. She likes you, I said quietly. I like her. Alexei moved to stand beside me, close enough that I could feel his warmth. She's strong. Like her daughter. She's dying. We're all dying, Elena. Some of us just have better estimates of when. His reflection in the window showed his serious expression. But she's not gone yet. And while she's here, she deserves to see you happy. Does she know how much you sacrifice for her care? No. And she's not going to. I turned to face him. She'd feel guilty. Try to refuse treatment. I won't do that to her. Even though it's destroying you? Working yourself to exhaustion? Living in poverty to afford this place? It's not poverty. It's just less than others have. I crossed my arms defensively, and she's my mother. This is what you do for family. I know. His hand came up to brush hair from my face, the gesture becoming familiar. But you don't have to do it alone anymore. The money Marcus stole. Let me give it to you. Pay off this facility for the next 5 years. Give yourself breathing room. I can't. You can. You just won't let yourself. His voice was gentle but firm. Pride is admirable, Elena, but it's also a cage. And you've been locked in that cage so long you've forgotten what freedom feels like. Freedom from what? Constant worry. Constant struggle. The weight of being responsible for everything and everyone with no one being responsible for you. He stepped closer, and suddenly the space between us felt charged. Let me take care of you, not because you're weak, but because you deserve someone strong enough to carry some of the weight. And what do you get out of it? I needed to understand, needed to know what he wanted. Nobody does something for nothing, Alexei. Especially not men like you. Men like me. He smiled, but it was sad. You're right. Men like me always want something. We don't give without expecting return. So what do you want? You. The word was simple, devastating. I want you to stop looking at me like I'm going to hurt you. I want you to smile without that edge of fear behind it. I want to take you to dinner and not have you question every gesture, every gift, every kindness. He cupped my face with both hands now, his touch gentle despite the calloused palms. I want you to trust me, Elena. That's what I want. Your trust. Eventually, if I'm very lucky, maybe something more. My heart was racing. This is insane. We barely know each other. I know you work 2 jobs and still find time to visit your mother. I know you sacrifice everything for the people you love. I know you're terrified right now, but standing here anyway because you're braver than you think. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. I know that when you smile, really smile, not that customer service smile you wear like armor, it makes something in my chest feel like it's breaking and healing at the same time. Alexei, I know this is fast. I know it doesn't make sense. I know I'm dangerous and complicated and everything you should run from. His forehead touched mine, and his breath was warm against my lips. But I also know that the moment I saw you crawl out from under that bed, looking at me with defiance instead of fear, something changed. I want to know you, Elena, all of you. The parts you show the world and the parts you hide. What if you don't like what you find? Impossible. He said it with such certainty that I almost believed him. But if somehow I'm wrong, I'll still make sure you're safe, still pay for your mother's care, still keep my promises. Because that's what men like me do, Elena. We keep our word, especially to people we care about. You barely know me, I whispered. How can you care? How can you breathe? How does your heart beat? Some things just are. His lips brushed my temple, soft and reverent. Let me in, Elena. Please. I swear I'll be careful with you. The worst part was that I wanted to. God help me. I wanted to let this dangerous, beautiful man past every wall I'd built. Wanted to believe that someone could want me not for what I could give them, but just for existing. Wanted to lean into his warmth and let someone else be strong for once. The sound of my mother's wheelchair interrupted the moment. We stepped apart as the nurse wheeled her back in, but not before my mother caught the expression on my face. Her knowing smile suggested she'd seen everything she needed to see. The rest of the visit passed in comfortable conversation. Alexei told stories about Russia, carefully edited, I was sure, to remove anything too criminal that made my mother laugh. He asked about her childhood in Mexico, listened to her rambling anecdotes with genuine interest, treated her like she was someone important, instead of just another patient in a care facility. When it was time to leave, my mother hugged me tightly. This one, she whispered in Spanish against my ear. Don't let him go, mija. Men who look at you like you're precious are rare. Mama, it's not like that. It will be. She pulled back, cupping my face with shaking hands. I've lived long enough to recognize love when I see it beginning. He's falling for you. And you, my stubborn daughter, are falling right back. I'm not. You are. She kissed my forehead. Let yourself fall, mija. I think he'll catch you. In the SUV on the way back, Alexei was quiet, seeming lost in thought. The silence should have been awkward but wasn't. It felt comfortable, like we'd moved past the need to fill every moment with words. Thank you, I said finally. For coming, for being kind to her. I liked her. She reminds me of my mother, strong, no patience for lies. He turned to look at me. She's right, you know. About what? About you being stubborn. His mouth quirked. But also about everything else. My stomach flipped. Alexei, I'm taking you to dinner again. Tomorrow night. Somewhere less formal. There's a place I think you'll like. Small, family-owned, best Italian food in the city. You're very sure of yourself. I'm sure of what I want. There's a difference. His hand found mine again, that now familiar touch. Say yes, Elena. I should have said no. Should have put distance between us, protected myself from whatever this was becoming. But my mother's words echoed in my head. Let yourself fall. And maybe, Just maybe I was tired of always being safe. Yes, I heard myself say. His smile was brilliant, transforming his face from dangerously handsome to absolutely devastating. Good. 7 o'clock. Wear whatever you want. Your clothes, my gifts, doesn't matter. I just want you there. When we reached my apartment, he walked me up again. At my door, he pulled me close, one hand splaying across the small of my back, the other cupping my face. I'm going to kiss you, he said softly. If you don't want that, say so now. My heart was thunder in my chest. I should say no, should maintain boundaries. Okay? I whispered. His mouth met mine, and the world tilted. The kiss was gentle at first, almost tentative, like he was afraid I might break, but when I made a small sound and pressed closer, something shifted. His arms tightened around me, pulling me flush against him, and the kiss deepened into something hotter, more desperate. He tasted like coffee and promises, and his hands in my hair felt like anchoring points in a spinning world. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. I've wanted to do that since I saw you crawl out from under that bed, he admitted, his voice rough. Covered in dust, furious and terrified and so damn beautiful I could barely think. That's insane, I managed. Probably. He kissed me again, softer this time. But I've never claimed to be sane, Elena. Just honest. He left me at my door, trembling and confused and wanting, my lips burning from his kiss, my mind spinning with impossible possibilities. Inside my apartment, I touched my mouth, still feeling the ghost of his kiss, and wondered when exactly I'd stopped being Elena Santos, struggling waitress with a simple life, and become someone who kissed mafia bosses in hallways and liked it. My phone buzzed. A text from the number I now knew by heart. Sleep well, beautiful. Tomorrow can't come fast enough. I fell asleep smiling, for the first time in years, not worried about tomorrow, not calculating bills or shifts, or how to stretch money that didn't exist, just thinking about a dangerous man with gentle hands and a kiss that felt like coming home. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and careful revelations. Alexei took me to dinner at the Italian restaurant, a tiny place in Brooklyn run by a family who greeted him like a beloved nephew and fed us until I could barely move. We talked for hours, discovering shared love for old movies and terrible puns, arguing playfully about books and music. He made me laugh until my sides hurt, and somewhere between the tiramisu and the third glass of wine, I realized I was in serious trouble. He took me to the museum on a Tuesday afternoon when it was nearly empty, hiring a private guide who showed us Renaissance paintings and ancient sculptures, while Alexei's security kept discreet distance. He held my hand through the galleries, listened to me ramble about symbolism and technique, and later admitted he'd only been half watching the art because he couldn't stop looking at me. He showed up at the diner during my late shift with takeout from expensive restaurants, sitting in the corner booth and doing work on his laptop while I served customers. His presence a silent promise that I wasn't alone. Tony started calling him Mr. Fancy, and stopped asking questions when the tips Alexei left covered my rent. And every night, he kissed me goodnight at my door with increasing heat and decreasing restraint, until I started inviting him inside for coffee that we never actually drank, losing ourselves in kisses on my couch, until he'd pull back with visible effort and leave before things went too far. I want to do this right, he'd say, breathing hard, his hair disheveled from my fingers. You deserve to be courted properly, not rushed. It was old-fashioned and ridiculous, and made me fall harder. But there were darker moments, too. Nights when his phone would ring and his expression would shudder, become the dangerous man I'd first met. He'd leave abruptly, returning hours later with shadows in his eyes and blood on his knuckles he thought I didn't notice. I didn't ask. Wasn't sure I wanted to know. But the evidence of his world was always there, lurking beneath the surface of our careful intimacy. The security that followed us everywhere, the deference he received from strangers, the carefully blank spaces in conversation when I asked about his work. On a rainy Thursday evening, 3 weeks and 2 days after that first dinner, everything changed. I was closing at the diner, late shift, just me and Tony cleaning up, when the door chimed. I looked up from wiping tables, ready to say we were closed, and felt my blood freeze. Marcus stood in the doorway, soaked from the rain, looking haggard and desperate. He'd lost weight, his suit hanging wrong, dark circles under his eyes making him look 10 years older than the man I'd married. "Elena," he said, his voice cracking. "Please, I need to talk to you." Tony moved immediately, positioning himself between us. "You need to leave, buddy." "It's okay, Tony." I surprised myself with how steady my voice was. "Give us a minute?" Tony looked doubtful but nodded, retreating to the kitchen but leaving the door open. I could feel him watching, ready to intervene. Marcus moved closer, and I saw the trembling in his hands, the fear radiating from him like heat. "You look terrible," I said flatly. "I am terrible." He laughed, the sound broken. "Everything you think about me, everything Volkov told you, it's all true. I'm a coward and a thief, and I used you in the worst way possible. Why are you here, Marcus? To apologize, to warn you." He ran shaking hands through his hair. "Elena, you need to get away from Alexei Volkov. He's dangerous. I know what he is." I crossed my arms. "He's been very honest about it. Has he told you about the people he's hurt? The things he's done?" Marcus's voice rose desperately. "He's not some gentleman criminal from a movie, Elena. He's a killer. A monster. And whatever he's doing with you, it's not love. Men like him don't love. They possess. They consume. And what did you do, Marcus?" My voice was cold. "You loved me so much you tried to feed me to him. Set me up to take a fall, or at least distract him while you ran. That's your version of love? I was desperate. I made a mistake. You made a choice. You chose to steal from dangerous people. Chose to marry me knowing what might happen. Chose to give me a key to his room and hope for the best." I stepped closer, and he actually flinched. "Alexei gave me choices. You gave me lies. So don't stand there and lecture me about monsters when you're the one who threw me to the wolves. He's using you." "No." The certainty in my voice surprised me. "He's protecting me. There's a difference. For now." Marcus's eyes were wild. "But what happens when he gets bored? When you stop being interesting? When some other woman catches his eye?" "Men like Volkov don't do commitment, Elena. They do conquest. And you're just—" He never finished the sentence. The diner door opened again, and Alexei walked in with 2 of his security. He was dressed for business, full suit, that dangerous edge sharp and visible. His eyes found me first, scanning for injury with the efficiency of long practice, then locked onto Marcus. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "You were told to stay away from her," Alexei said quietly. Too quietly. The kind of quiet that preceded violence. Marcus went white. "I just wanted to—" "You wanted to poison her against me. Make her afraid, convince her I'm the villain in this story." Alexei moved forward with that predatory grace, and Marcus backed up until he hit a table. "But here's the thing, Marcus. Elena is smart. She knows exactly what I am, and she's choosing to stay anyway. That must kill you. She doesn't know. I know everything." I found my voice, surprised by its strength. "He's told me, shown me. I know he's dangerous. I know what his world is, and I'm still here." Alexei's expression softened when he looked at me, just for a moment, before turning back to Marcus. "You've repaid 80% of what you stole. The remaining 60,000 will be forgiven on one condition." Marcus's eyes widened with desperate hope. "Anything. You disappear, leave the city, change your name if you want, but you never contact Elena again. Never come near her. Never speak about her. Never even think about her if you can help it." Alexei's voice was soft steel. "Because if I find out you violated this agreement, if I hear your voice on her phone, see your name in her inbox, catch even a whisper that you've tried to reach her, I will forget my current generosity. Do we understand each other?" Marcus nodded frantically. Yes, I understand." "Good." Alexei gestured to his security. "Make sure he catches the next flight out. I don't care where. Just far from here." They escorted Marcus out, and then it was just us, me and Alexei and Tony watching suspiciously from the kitchen. "You okay?" Alexei asked gently. He called you a monster. I am a monster. He said you'd get bored with me, move on to someone else. Something flashed in Alexei's eyes. Anger, maybe, or hurt. Is that what you think? No. I moved closer, closing the distance between us. I think you're a lot of things. Dangerous, yes. Violent when you need to be. Operating outside the law in ways I don't always understand. But you've never lied to me. Never pretended to be something you're not. And you've kept every promise you've made. His hands framed my face, thumbs brushing my cheekbones. I won't get bored, Elena. I won't move on. When I want something, I keep it, protect it. And I've never wanted anything the way I want you. That sounds like possession. It is. He didn't deny it. But it's also devotion. Obsession, maybe. I think about you constantly. You're the last thing on my mind before I sleep and the first when I wake. I've rearranged my entire schedule to steal hours with you. I've turned down business deals because they'd take me out of the city for too long. His forehead touched mine. You've become essential, Elena. Like breathing. And I know that's intense and probably terrifying, but it's the truth. My heart was racing. What if I can't handle your world? What if it becomes too much? Then we figure it out together. I'll protect you from it as much as I can. But I won't lie. There will be hard moments, dangerous moments, times when you'll question if this is worth it. His voice dropped lower. All I can promise is that I'll never betray you, never use you, never make you feel like you're less important than anything else in my life. Alexei, I love you. The words hung in the air between us, simple and devastating. I know it's too soon. I know it doesn't make sense. But I fell in love with you somewhere between watching you make choices that terrified you, and listening to you talk to your mother, and seeing you smile when you think no one's watching. I love you, Elena, and I need you to know that before you decide what happens next. Tears burned behind my eyes. This is insane. Probably. He smiled, that devastating expression that made my knees weak. But I've never claimed to be sane, just honest. I kissed him. Hard. Pouring 3 weeks of wanting and confusion and fear and hope into it. He responded immediately, arms wrapping around me, lifting me slightly off my feet, as the kiss deepened into something desperate and claiming. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, I saw Tony watching from the kitchen with obvious interest. Take me home, I whispered against Alexei's mouth. Not the apartment you gave me. Your home. I want to see where you live. His eyes darkened with heat and something deeper. Elena, I know what I'm asking. I know what it means. I met his gaze steadily. I love you too. It's terrifying and illogical and probably the worst decision I've ever made. But it's true. I love you, Alexei Volkov, so take me home and show me your world. All of it. The smile that crossed his face was pure joy, unguarded and beautiful. He kissed me again, softer this time. Reverent. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Alexei's penthouse was everything I expected, and nothing like I imagined. Yes, it was luxurious. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, expensive furniture, artwork that probably cost more than most people's houses, but it was also lived in. Books stacked on tables, a half-empty coffee cup in the kitchen, photographs scattered across a desk, showing a young Alexei with a beautiful woman who must have been his mother. It's not what you expected, he said, watching me explore. I thought it would be colder, more like a showroom. I picked up one of the photographs, studying his young face. This is more human. I'm human, Elena, just a human who makes inhuman choices sometimes. He moved behind me, arms wrapping around my waist. But here, in this space, I get to just be Alexei. Not a boss, not a threat. Just a man who likes strong coffee and old jazz and beautiful women who call him out on his bullshit. I turned in his arms, facing him. What happens now? Whatever you want. His hands traced up my sides, the touch both possessive and gentle. We can take this slow. I can take you back to your apartment, keep courting you properly. Or I can take you to bed and spend all night showing you exactly how much I love you. His voice was rough with want. But once we cross that line, Elena, there's no going back. You'll be mine completely, and I'll be yours. No half measures. No holding back. My pulse thundered. That sounds like a threat. It's a promise. He kissed my neck, making me gasp. I'll worship you. Protect you. Give you everything you've ever wanted and things you didn't know to ask for. But I'll also be possessive, jealous. I'll want to know where you are, who you're with. I'll eliminate threats you don't even see coming. I'll reshape my entire world to make sure you're safe and happy. That's a lot. I know. His teeth grazed my pulse point. Too much. I should have said yes. Should have asked for time, for space, for sanity, but I was tired of being careful. Tired of protecting myself from every possible hurt. This man, dangerous, powerful, completely devoted, was offering me everything, and God help me, I wanted it. Not enough. I whispered. Show me, Alexei. Show me what it means to be yours. He didn't need to be told twice. He carried me to his bedroom, all dark colors and soft sheets and windows that turned the city into a carpet of stars. And then he proceeded to take me apart with kisses and touches and whispered promises in Russian I didn't understand, but felt in my bones. He was gentle and demanding by turns, learning my body like it was sacred text, finding places that made me gasp and moan and beg for more. And when we finally came together, when he was buried deep inside me with my name on his lips like a prayer, I felt something click into place. This was home. Not the apartment he'd given me, or the life I'd built before. Him. Us. This dangerous, beautiful man who looked at me like I was precious, and fought the world to keep me safe. Afterwards, wrapped in his arms with the city glittering below, I felt him press a kiss to my temple. Mine, he murmured. Forever mine. Forever yours, I agreed. But I'm keeping my job at the diner, he laughed, the sound rich and warm. Wouldn't dream of taking it away, though I reserve the right to show up and distract you during shifts. Deal. I tilted my head to look at him. What about my degree? You said, already arranged. You start next semester. Full scholarship. Everything covered. His fingers traced patterns on my spine. You're going to be an incredible teacher, Elena. Tears burned my eyes. How did this happen? How did I go from hiding under a bed on my wedding night to this? Fate. Luck. Marcus being an idiot. Alexei pulled me closer. Does it matter? You're here now. Safe, loved. Exactly where you're supposed to be. With a Mafia boss. With the man who loves you more than anything in his violent, complicated world. He kissed me slowly. I know this isn't a fairy tale, Elena. There will be hard days. Dangerous moments. Times when you'll hate what I have to do. But I swear I'll always come back to you. Always protect you. Always love you like you're the only thing that matters. Because I am? Because you are. His smile was soft. You're everything, Elena. My redemption. My purpose. My home. I kissed him, pouring every ounce of love and trust and terrified hope into it. And as the city sparkled beyond the windows and his arms held me safe, I finally understood what my mother had meant. Sometimes you have to let yourself fall, and if you're very lucky, you find someone strong enough to catch you. Someone dangerous and devoted and completely, utterly yours. 6 months later, I graduated with honors, my teaching degree finally complete. Alexei sat in the front row next to my mother, who'd been moved to a better facility with experimental treatments that were actually working, cheering louder than anyone when I crossed the stage. He'd taken over her care completely, visiting her weekly, bringing her flowers and stories and making her laugh until she cried. The diner threw me a goodbye party. Tony cried and gave me a plaque that read, "Best damn waitress ever." Alexei bought the building and ensured Tony got a fair lease, because that's what he did. Protected the people I loved with the same ferocity he protected me. I started teaching at a high school in Brooklyn, sharing my love of literature with students who needed someone to believe in them. Some days were hard, but I'd come home to Alexei, because I'd officially moved into the penthouse 2 months ago, and he'd listen to my frustrations and remind me why it mattered. His world still scared me sometimes. The phone calls at odd hours, the security that shadowed me everywhere. The careful omissions in conversation about where he'd been or what he'd done. But he kept his promises, never lied. never made me feel less important than his business. And when darkness crept too close, when I saw things I wished I hadn't, or understood too much about what protection really meant, he held me and reminded me that love wasn't about being perfect. It was about choosing each other anyway. On a cool evening in October, Alexei took me back to Luminare, the restaurant where we'd had our first real date. We sat at the same table, ordered the same wine, and somewhere between dessert and coffee, he got down on one knee. The ring was perfect, a sapphire surrounded by diamonds. Unique and beautiful and completely unlike the pawnshop band Marcus had offered. "Elena Santos," Alexei said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "You crawled out from under a bed and into my life, and nothing has been the same since. You've made me better, softer, human in ways I'd forgotten. I know I'm not easy. I know my world is complicated and dangerous, but I love you more than I knew it was possible to love someone. Marry me. Not for security or safety or any practical reason. Marry me because you love me back. Because you want to build a life with a man who will spend every day trying to deserve you." I was crying. Didn't care. Yes. God, yes. He slipped the ring on my finger, stood, and kissed me like we weren't in a public restaurant with people watching. Kissed me like I was air and he'd been drowning. "I'll do it right this time," he promised against my lips. "Big wedding, your mother walking you down the aisle, everything you deserve. I just want you," I whispered back. "Everything else is just decoration." We were married 3 months later in a small ceremony at the care facility so my mother could attend. She cried through the whole thing, radiant in her wheelchair, telling anyone who'd listen that she'd known from the start we were meant to be. Alexei's family flew in from Russia, cousins and associates and people I was probably better off not knowing too much about. But they were kind to me, respectful, welcoming me into a world I was still learning to navigate. And when Alexei said his vows, promising to love, protect, cherish, and sometimes protect me from himself, I knew with absolute certainty that this was right. Not safe, not simple. Not anything like the life I'd imagined when I'd hidden under that bed on my first wedding night, but real. True. Built on honesty and choice and love that was equal parts terrifying and transcendent. As we danced at the reception, held at a venue Alexei had rented entirely, with security disguised as guests and celebration that lasted until dawn, I rested my head on his chest and listened to his heartbeat. "No regrets?" he murmured into my hair. "Only one," I said, smiling up at him. His expression flickered with concern. "What?" "That I didn't crawl out from under that bed sooner." I pulled him down for a kiss. Could have saved us both some time. His laugh was everything. Joy and relief and love so fierce it stole my breath. "I'd have waited forever, Elena Volkov," he said. "You're worth every second." And as the music swirled around us and the city glittered beyond the windows, and my dangerous, devoted husband held me like I was something precious, I finally understood. Sometimes the wrong room leads you exactly where you're meant to be. Sometimes monsters are just men who love too fiercely, and sometimes hiding under a bed on your wedding night is the beginning of the greatest love story you'll ever live. Mine started with lavender-scented lies and a stranger's dark eyes. It became truth and devotion, and a love that nothing, not danger, not doubt, not even my own fear, could ever take away. Forever his. Forever mine.